Hi everybody. Thank you for putting up with my video today, and I hope that you all got a couple of attachments by email that I sent out this morning for 144 class. And I just want to go over it with you because it's really important that you understand what you got and why you got it. I hope it's going to be a really good semester. I'm so glad the group that you are, and I hope that you may find an opportunity to work together here, because I want to encourage you that anything that we're doing in this class you can do together. There's no big mystery. You can share the responsibilities of taping, of doing the interviews and that kind of thing if you want to. So what are we doing and why? It's very difficult to do a supervision class online, because supervision classes typically you have to be on the job sites with people. And for the most part in 144, when you're an online student, you've never met the person before. Most of you, particularly in this group, I've had you all before, and I know who you are and I know what you do, and so it's kind of interesting to see how we're going to work this out. So we've tried to come up with some creative ways to make a practicum class that's good for you and will also meet the requirements of psychosocial rehabilitation, in addition to being just an ordinary interviewing type of class. So let's take a look at what you've been sent and what our goals are for this semester. As you look at the job sites where you are and the supervisors that you have, you're going to have to educate them on what we're trying to do in terms of counseling techniques. You're seeing a series of videos for the first time in 144 that are based on things that you've heard before. For instance, Carl Rogers is extremely important as client-centered therapy in psychosocial, and it's one of the things that we've stressed in our program. You who have had me before know that I'm really big on conditional positive regard. I don't think you can work with people if you don't believe in unconditional positive regard. I think that's true with friendships. I think it's true with family. That there's places where you have to trust people and accept them just as who they are, and not try to make them change, because you can only change yourself. You can't change somebody else. So let's look at what I've sent to you. On this document, it talks about confidentiality, and I've talked to many of you about confidentiality before. Confidentiality is a legal issue, and it's also an employment issue. Lots of times you work for an agency who has a confidentiality policy, and that's their policy as an agency, that you may not discuss anything that you do, hear, say. But it doesn't mean that if you went to court that you could be held accountable for that, because it's not legally like a priest or a professional counselor licensed where you have to maintain that confidentiality. But it is a condition of employment, for instance, a community service agency. That's their rule. It's not a legal issue necessarily, but it is an employment issue. Now, if you're a licensed therapist in any capacity, you must follow the law legally, or you can go to jail and also have a tremendous fine on you for violating any confidentiality issues. In this case, we're going to follow it very closely. The agencies like Community Service Agency are going to have a problem with you doing a taped interview on your job. But there really is no confidentiality involved, because at no time will anybody's name or who they are to be able to see them. That will not happen. That will not be part of this interview process. The only person that the interview is based on is you as the interviewer. So it's all about you, not about the client, not about whoever, the friend or whoever it is that you're seeing. So you need to discuss it with your agency about their feeling on confidentiality. And what I've sent to you is a copy of a form, and you have that also. And that form is something that you're going to have the person sign, and you're going to keep that. And I think I've got it, that's the next part of what we're talking about here. If you work in an agency like mental health, behavioral health, or if you work at community service agency in any capacity, you need to run it by your supervisor what you need to do. If they say absolutely no, that you will not be allowed to use anybody that you work with there as a client or a customer, if you will, then you'll have to find somebody else that you will use as your interviewee. But let's see how that goes. And it also depends on how well you define what you're doing and make it very clear that at no point will the person be seen or identified in any way. The only person who will have anything to do with knowing who they are would be you, or could be, maybe if you had somebody do the taping for you, but they still wouldn't know their name or anything like that. So the release is to be kept in your records. You must have a copy, you must have it, because otherwise I don't want you to do an interview with somebody. You'll only need 2 of them for the semester, 1 for each 5 weeks of the 2 series of interviews that you're going to be doing. Let's see, if you have any questions on that, just remember the concept that no matter where you are, if somebody is in clear and present danger to themselves or others, it's something you're going to have to report. That is not based on confidentiality, that's based on the law, period, that you need to do something about that and make a report, whether it's to your supervisor, the police, or whomever it is. And that could be to me as well as to a supervisor on the job. If you're in this class while that happens, I want to know that it happened. Just in case it comes back to MJC, we need to know that there was an incident. All right, explain to your interviewee. You need to tell them that you are an MJC student in human service and you're taking a practicum class, and that you're going to be working on your interviewing and counseling skills. And be sure you thank them for agreeing to work with you and to be taped for the purposes of your class, and explain that you're doing your own taping and why, and then begin the interview. The second part of it is you're going to have 3 taped interviews, not for you as an individual, but every module, starting with module 3. 3 people in the class will be doing that, and they're listed there. So like module 3, I started at the beginning of the alphabet, but also picked 3 of you to begin with who do work in an agency, because it's easier to work with somebody on a job than it is to work with a friend or a family member. You may not think so. You'll think it's a lot simpler just to talk with somebody you already know and do this quick, dirty little interview thing, but that's not true. That's not true at all, because you still have to discuss something with somebody, and you're still going to be eliciting information from them. And as you do that, they go, what are you talking about? What do you want me to say? Well, those kinds of things. When it's somebody who comes to you for a specific reason, it's a whole lot easier to interview them. And so, keep that in mind as you decide who you're going to interview and who you're going to ask. I would rather, if you have somebody coming in, you're working out at CSA and you're doing let's say you're doing food stamps or something. When they come in, you basically know food stamps are what you want. But what I always say when you come in is I say, how are you, and what I can do to help you today? What are you here for exactly? And it may be that it is just food stamps, that's all they need, or EBT card, or whatever it is. That doesn't change it. It starts a conversation. It starts a conversation with somebody that can have, as you know, those of you who work in the field already, lead you all kinds of places. Well, it hasn't been too good. 16 people from my family, moved in with me, and what do I do? And all these other questions. And it's how you learn to handle that and how you make it into a positive experience for both you and the person that you interview. So you look at those modules there, and they will be online. In each module, your names will be on there to remind you, and you can see across there all the way down to module 7. At module 8, the whole cycle will turn again, and we'll do a little different focus on what you're going to get from the interview that you're going to have. But you can work, as I said, in groups. You could take 3 of you if you wanted to, and one of you tape while one of you does the interviewing. You can do it just by yourself with somebody that you're going to interview. You can sit and talk about what you've done. I don't care. whatever, but you're responsible for your own video when you turn it in, and you can't use the same video for two people. You have to have your own. Practice with your camera or your phone before. It would be a phone camera. I'm assuming for most of that you're going to use your phone. You'll want to set your phone up in such a way that it videos you where you can see your shoulders and your hands on top of a desk or in your lap or whatever you're going to do. And it shows how you position yourself with the person, bring them in, sit them down, or whatever you're going to do to talk to them. And then have it focused only on you. Do not allow it to show the person that you're talking to. So get that figured out before you get them in there so that it doesn't get too complicated and things fall over and nothing works and you got to start all over again. And how do I know that? Because I've made every mistake on it that you can possibly make. And I make the mistakes really well. I'm not so sure about the solutions all the time. But I would tell you to practice with your camera and check it out, make sure it's going right. Okay, as I said, choose someone to interview that it has a purpose to the interview. Something that gives you a reason to see them. One of the worst things that I hate is in counseling, particularly, somebody will send someone to me and they'll come in and I'll say, who sent you in and what do I need to talk to you about? And they'll say, I don't know. Well, who sent you in and did something happen that they felt you need to come in? I don't know. That can ruin any interview. It doesn't matter if you're not turning it in for a grade in a class, but it does matter that you feel kind of silly and say, well, think about it. If there's something I can do later, come back and see me and we'll go over it again. Or you tell whoever referred them to you that you weren't quite sure what they wanted, what was it that you needed to see the person about, and then you have to start over again. So it really would be good to make sure that you have a reason to talk to somebody. That's why I say a friend or a family member may not be that person who has a specific problem or something that you can help them figure out the answer to. And notice how I said that, so that you can help them figure out the answer to. Got that one? That's the client-centered part. Okay. Then your interview should be approximately 5 minutes in length. It takes just about that long to get started in something. You can continue to go on after that, but I'm only going to hold you responsible for about 5 minutes worth. And then if you want to keep going, talking to them, you can turn off the tape if you want and then continue whatever it is that you're going to do. Then upload your video onto Blackboard in the video discussion area, and that's where it goes. And then all of you are going to see that video, everybody. And then there's some things that you're going to look at. And what you're going to be looking for is the 6 things below on the sheet that I'm looking at on the other side of the screen here. And it's A, you're going to talk about, and these questions will be listed on Blackboard too in that discussion part, so that all you have to do is go down and answer them. How did the interviewer engage the client? I mean, why are you here? How can I help you? What's going on with you today? That kind of thing. How did you get the interview started? How did you get involved with the person when you first got them in there to talk to them? Did the interviewer maintain eye contact? What were you doing? Were you looking at the ceiling, at the walls, at the clock behind you? Whatever were you doing while the interview was going on? Okay, was the interviewer genuine and positive? Is this something that you were able to do and to do well? That's very important. What was the interviewer's posture? You've seen a video now on body language, which is so important. And so what were you doing? Were you rocking back and forth? Were your hands going? What was going on? What was happening while all of this was being interviewed? Okay. So, was the interviewer interested and involved? Did it look genuine? Did it look like you're really interested? Did you really care about somebody getting food stamps that day, or did you just want to get them out of there so you could go to lunch or coffee or whatever? Okay, and did the interviewer use a client-centered approach? And if not, what did they use? And define that a little bit in your answer. These don't have to be long answers and long evaluations. But what you're doing is you're identifying for yourself, and as you look at this, yourself in somebody else's interview. And you're also helping the person who did the interview take a look at themselves from your viewpoint. What is it you want to accomplish? There's no big mystery to counseling and interviewing. There's a mystique about it, or at least there was certainly when I was in graduate schools doing a lot of clinic work and things, working with people who had, what we thought were, monstrous problems, but everybody's got problems. Living is a problem at times. So, the question is, how do we do what we do and how do we get better at it? And sometimes we get better and sometimes we don't get better, but we need to remind ourselves what works and what doesn't work. I try to be very aware of not using and those kinds of things. So over the years, I've been very aware of watching all the interviewing tapes I ever had to do about some of those bad habits. And I hope that in the classroom and in counseling sessions, that sort of thing, that I don't do a lot of that repetitious behavior that can be really obnoxious. Like counting every time somebody says, and people do keep track sometimes. They even have little check marks, hash marks that they make of how many times they hear that when someone's talking to them. So you're trying something new on Blackboard anyway, something that we haven't done a lot of, and a kind of a different technique for allowing us to be able to serve the multiple counties that we're serving now from Modesto Junior College on psychosocial rehabilitation without having to go up there and visit and observe people when they are, 100, 150 miles away from where the college site is. And I'm kind of excited about this because it's different, and we don't seem to have found it being done anywhere else. I originally was very wary about doing any type of practicum class online, saying it isn't going to work. You've got to be able to see the people and be with the people and watch what they do. So you're the first. Let's see how it goes and see what you can do. And I think we'll have a good experience, and use each other as a resource and talk about what you saw, what you think, how you feel about it. I want your feedback on what you're getting out of it, what you think you've heard and seen. And I think you'll certainly be better at what you do when you observe yourself and make some changes that you think you want to make to work better with others. So read this over. Don't hate me for it. Let's have fun with it. And I know you as a group of people, and I know your work ethic. Let's just not sweat the grade. It's pretty easy. It's pretty down to earth on what it is. At this point, everybody's got an A, and unless you really screwed it up, you're going to have one at the end. So now that we've got that over with, let's see if we can make a program that really works and is good for everybody at MJC and maybe other places too. Thanks, guys.